Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video, I'm going to be giving you my first impressions on Halo 5. So this isn't going to be an actual review for a few reasons. One, I haven't played the game enough to give it a proper review. Two, what I have played of the game was mostly while I was deprived of sleep. And three, I've only played the game on normal so far for the campaign. I haven't played it on legendary, which will change it some. However, I think judging a game on its normal difficulty is a fair assessment. I just need to have some more hands-on time with it to give it an actual review. So this is just my first impressions, not any final critique or anything like that. So we're going to break this down into a few categories. The first one I want to talk about is graphics. The graphics in this game, I think, both the pre-rendered CGI and the actual in-game graphics, probably the best I've seen yet on a console game. Prior to this, everybody's kind of always compared The Witcher as one of the top ones to any other game, and then I thought Batman was actually better than The Witcher, Arkham Knight, and I thought Batman was better than that, and this makes Batman look silly. This game looks so good. In-game, you have tons of detail everywhere, and they've actually gone to great lengths to actually put their artists to work, and there's tons of elaborate-looking things, lots of creativity, lots of artistic flair, and everything looks fantastic in-game. The pre-rendered cutscenes, man, they are incredible. Absolutely stunning. It looks like real people. It looks better than real people. If real people could look like that, they'd be lucky. So it's just, the graphics are fantastic, and the 60 frames per second, smooth. Everything looks and runs and plays so smooth, and the 60 frames per second is both for graphics and for gameplay. So let's talk about gameplay now. Let's talk about gameplay. Gameplay in this game, fantastic. As far as being a Spartan, so if you guys have been playing Halo since it came out, you know we've had changes throughout, and some things have been good, some things felt off, some things kind of hurt gameplay. As far as I'm concerned, as of right now, and I've kind of felt this way since the beta, and just playing it on the actual final release ensures that I had the right idea. Everything feels perfect. It feels exactly as it should. The Spartans move the way they're supposed to. They're nice and quick and agile and nimble without being so fast that it hurts the gameplay. It still feels exactly like Halo. It just feels like Halo the way it should have always been. So I think that's absolutely key in this game. It feels right. It's a perfect balance of new with the right kind of reminiscent feeling of Halo gameplay. All the way back to CE when you were super slow and couldn't do much but jump really floaty. This kind of feels like that, but to the nth degree. It just feels right. The gunplay is as tight as ever. Really happy with that. The new improvements to some of the guns, the changes and nerfs and buffs and all that kind of stuff, it all feels good so far. There are a couple guns that I feel are a little bit too buffed, or nerfed I mean, not buffed. The buffs are all good. As far as I can think right now. The nerfs, I'm not so sure about the binary or the incineration cannon. I think I'll probably get used to those though, so I'm alright with that. So gunplay as tight as ever. The enemies, good as ever. The changes to the night I think were good. They're a lot tougher now, but they have some weak spots, so that's cool. Hunters feel maybe a bit too strong, especially going in solo, because the AI doesn't work so well, but we'll talk about AI in a second. So most of the enemy changes I think are good, and once you get used to them, I think that'll be a good thing too, so I'm fine with that. So let's talk about the AI. The AI, for a game that is meant for co-op but also has the AI when you're not doing co-op, the AI is not a satisfactory replacement for the co-op, which it never really is, so I can't really blame them too much. But there are two things that really play a big role in the AI. The friendly AI, not the enemies. So when you're playing it on Osiris, you have the 3 other Spartans, and same thing for Blue Team. So this is the AI I'm talking about. They don't do much of anything. If you don't put them on a particular target, they're just going to kind of hang out and shoot stuff maybe if it's around. Maybe. They don't do much of anything otherwise. If you tell them to kill that target, which you can do, they'll do that. I think it would have been cool if you could pick multiple targets, since there are 3 of them, 4 including yourself. Unless you can, and I just haven't figured it out yet, it does seem a bit counterproductive sometimes to have them all focus on one target, but at least they do something. And then if you go down, you have to tell them to help you. Otherwise, they won't. Which I don't know why that's a thing. It should automatically be that they come to help you. It's never okay, never a good idea to just let yourself die and go back to the checkpoint. In which case, you can kill yourself in a way that would prevent them from helping you. So I think it's a little weird that you have to ask them to help. So those two things, if you tell them to do it, they'll do it. Otherwise, they mostly stand there doing not much of anything. They also still have some of the cat genetics from Halo Reach. They love to use their vehicles against you. I had bugs splatter me a couple times already, so that wasn't very cool. Not cool at all. Very disappointing. And then the last thing with the AI is they don't feel like they're actually trying to contribute anything. They're always behind. If you run ahead at any pace, they're really far behind most of the time. They will rubber band up, so that's okay, but it just feels like you're using regular AI. It doesn't feel like they're Spartans that are helping you. They don't do a whole lot. So it's just kind of disappointing in that regard. A lot of the times if you're in the middle of a firefight but there's not a whole lot going on near you, the AI is just kind of hanging out, not doing much. And if you do something like, I don't know if you guys saw the live stream at all, but I was at one point standing off in a distance and there was a wraith a little bit ways ahead. I focused them on the wraith. I said, okay, guys, go attack the wraith. They did, but without any sort of plan, so to speak. Instead of shooting the wraith, they all ran to it, and the wraith boosted and killed them all. The AI should know better than to just stand in front of a wraith. They should know to fight from cover, at least a little bit, I would think, to make them useful. So that's a bit of a bummer. It's not a horrible problem, because you'll probably be playing with co-op anyway. But it is a bit of a bummer. Okay, so let's move on to the multiplayer, which is kind of part of the gameplay, so it's going to be real brief. Multiplayer so far is really good. We still have only a few maps. They haven't released them all yet, and there's DLC coming that's free, so stay tuned for all that kind of stuff. But matchmaking has been quick and effective. As far as Warzone goes, no problems there with the 24 people. The only issue I've encountered so far is on one game, my team had no access to requisitions. The requisitions system was unavailable. It said try back later. While the other team had all kinds of weapons and vehicles, we were running around with pistols and ARs, so it didn't work out so well that match. Hopefully that's not a regular thing. Otherwise it's fun. I do kind of feel like there should be some on-map weapons for Warzone, just because it gives you a reason to go other places other than those few bases, and it takes a while to get requisitions. So having a few placed weapons, even if they're not necessarily power weapons, I think would help the flow of the game a little bit and keep people more active. Just my hunch. Otherwise, we're good with the multiplayer. Haven't done too much co-op yet, but I'm assuming it'll work just fine. And then lastly, we have to talk about the story. Now, you guys should know by now that I am a huge fan of the Halo fiction. I've read all of the books prior to the newest ones just because I haven't had time yet. All of the games on Legendary, co-op, single player, everything. I've done everything I could possibly do, and I love the story. Absolutely love the story. So I had a lot of hope for this game. You know, we left Halo 4 off with the whole Didac situation. Did he die? Didn't he die? Cortana's probably dead. What's going on with Halo? Where are we going to go from here? And then in Spartan Ops, we had the whole Janiski thing with Halsey and Jewel. Well, starting from this point forward, that's why I saved this for the end of the video, this is all going to have spoilers in it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave the video right now. Starting now, spoilers are coming, so don't freak out. So first thing I noticed in this game is the whole thing with Halsey and Jewel. Even if you have been following the comics, it's not continuous. All of a sudden, Halsey is with the UNSC. Well, not quite, but for the most part, they're not enemies anymore. We do have to go get her. And by going to get her, we have to do something with Jewel. So in a cutscene at the very end of a mission, I think it was at the end, like I said, I was sleep deprived, they kill Jewel. Like that. Locke kills Jewel in like 3 seconds. Totally anticlimactic. It's almost as if he never even existed. That's a big bummer. Jewel was a main player in Halo 4. He's kind of a big deal, and he's just gone. And Halsey's back and everybody's happy. Everybody's getting along fine. Even Palmer, who was all about killing Halsey, Palmer is all fine. Everything's fine. It's all good. We're working together, and I don't think they mentioned the Janus key at all. I know it was mentioned in the comics. It's just kind of just left off. So there's not really any story development. There's no continuation. It's a bit of a bummer. And again, I have to play through it. So I did miss things since I was streaming and talking to people, and I couldn't hear the audio sometimes because it seems like the audio is a little bit quiet for the voices. Anyway, I put on subtitles and that was okay. But like I said, this isn't a review. This is just my initial thoughts, and I'll update this and change it as I see fit later. So Jewel's gone. Halsey's good, which is fine. I like Halsey as a character, but the plot, there's a big gap in it, so that's kind of a bummer. And Master Chief and Blue Team. If you read the books and if you've done other things in the universe, you know who Blue Team is. But that's it. We don't know why they're all of a sudden with us, and all of a sudden they're with us. No backstory, and there's really not that much going on, at least on the normal difficulty, to make these characters feel alive at all. If you haven't read Fall of Reach or read the books and haven't watched that animated thing, which is apparently not the entire book, which is really a bummer, you don't really have any investment in these new Spartans, so that's a bit of a bummer also. Even for me, who I know who the characters are, it felt a little flat. So I thought that was another missed opportunity. As far as Cortana, yes, she's officially dead at the end of Halo 4. No, did anybody actually think she was going to come back? Yes, we all did. I thought so anyway. It made sense. They're branding things as Cortana. She's a main character. How could she just be dead like that? It doesn't make sense. And it didn't, and now she's back. But she's back in probably the most cliche, uninteresting story ever. The AI wants to be in charge of everything so that it can maintain peace and keep the humans and other creatures from being bad. We've heard that story so many times. I don't have a problem with Cortana being bad. They could have gone with her being rampant and doing something along those lines to be bad. But now, or kept her dead as far as I'm concerned. This story, I think, is a major disservice to anybody who liked the character and anybody who likes the franchise. It took this universe-spanning Forerunner storyline with the Didact and the Librarian and the Flood and all of this stuff, and it has narrowed it all the way back down to none of that. Cortana is now ascended to being this super kind of AI who's not rampant, she's immortal, thanks to the Forerunner tech and the mantle, which it makes sense if you've read the books, but it's not a good story because now all of the Forerunner stuff is irrelevant because it's just Cortana wanting to be in charge of it all. That's not an interesting story. It's basically Terminator or iRobot, where the robots think they can do better than everyone else, and we need to stop them so that we can maintain our free will. That's it. The entire Halo story has now boiled down to that, which I think is not a good thing. It's not interesting. It cuts out all the Forerunner stuff as far as we know. It's just not necessarily a good direction, I don't think. I think what happened, and of course this is just my speculation on my initial reaction, Halo 4 was very deep, had a lot of interwoven stories and a lot of fiction. And people complained about that. So now I think they've brought it all back in so that it was more basic for the people that complained, and now it's completely taken away from the story, and I think that's a big, big bummer because Halo had a really great story, and right now it's not that great. I'm not even complaining about the fact that it had a cliffhanger like Halo 2 had. That's fine, whatever. But whittling down the story to something so basic as it is now, just not a good direction for me. The whole thing with Locke, they built up this whole rivalry between Locke and Master Chief. It's not brought to realization in the game. There's one cutscene where they fight, which is a cool fight scene, but that's it. You never really feel the tension, and especially right after that, the tension's completely gone. It just doesn't work for me. So many missed opportunities to make this story more interesting, and everything that was there set up to do just that ended up getting cut off at the knees, and it made the story less interesting. And the last thing in the story that bothers me is the Warden Eternal, which was their E3 main thing, and it's a big Forerunner guy who looks awesome. We're not quite sure who he is at the beginning of the game, and by the end of the game, it just turns out that he's just an AI that is in support of Cortana taking over, which is fine, except he's not listening to her because he thinks he knows better than her, and so that's why he's fighting us, even though she wants us to come to her. She wants John back in her life, so to speak, which is okay. That makes sense that they have a connection. The only reason the Warden's a bad guy is because he thinks that's a bad idea. So we fight him a few times, there's no story development there at all. He's essentially just a robot that wants to fight us, practically speaking. And then once he's gone, he's gone. There's no story again. It's everything was kind of broken down into something so basic that it's not interesting anymore. So the gameplay and the missions was mostly fun, but the story behind them wasn't. It was either not there or very basic. So it is disappointing for me from a story standpoint. It's fun to play. If you're not that into the Halo fiction in the first place, then you won't care and you'll think it's a fantastic everything. For me, it's a fantastic everything but the story. The story was disappointing. And on top of that, I beat the game in almost exactly 6 hours on normal solo, which people say, sure, it's not legendary, it'll take longer on legendary. That doesn't matter. I've never beaten a Halo game in 6 hours on solo. That's short. There are more missions, but they go like that. So that's also a thing that bugged me a little bit. It was supposed to be the longest campaign ever. I've never been able to beat a game that fast, a Halo game that fast. So not quite as long as I was hoping. So is it a great game? Yes, it's a great game. Is the story great? I don't think so. I think the story left a lot to be desired, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get it back by the time Halo 6 comes out, if they've gone in this direction. So I'm a little bit worried, but it is still a fantastic game. Gameplay-wise, pure awesomeness. Story-wise, a little bit of a disappointment. So there it is. Hang around. I will eventually have a review once I get some more playtime under my belt and see how I feel about everything at that point. So stick around for that. Keep playing, keep collecting. I'll see you in the next video.